I'm Kelsey Moser, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel, where no sandbagging goes unscrutinized.
Right, this is going to be episode 20 of Elitists United, because I'm not actually counting, obviously, the Elitists on the Line, like the talk show we do where people call in. Like, that doesn't count as this show, because let's face it, like, half the people who call in are just, like, at best, it's an all right topic, isn't it? Like, we have to pick up that baton and make the show from them. But anyway, for number 20, the big 20, we've got on Dan here, who is the top laner of previously the Misfits Premier, which was the Academy team in the National League, who actually obviously won EU Masters. But now, due to, I mean, let's face it, the absolute internal collapse of Misfits on all levels, he's now actually just the starting LEC mid laner as well, at top laner. And the thing as well that you might not know, Veteran, is he's going straight at Mithy's motherfucking throat, trying to become the best player to ever come from the Canary Islands. See, Mithy thought I was a big fish in a small pond. You know, I've got this region on lockdown. Well, guess what, Inti? At the moment, this guy's coming for your crown. So, you like that title? You want to become the best Canary Islands player ever?
I actually hadn't thought of it, but hey, sure, man. Like,
we're trying to create rivalries here. You know, let's get some spice.
Yeah. I mean, I'll get any title. You know,
exactly
that I can get my hands on. So yeah.
Exactly. Right, let's actually, before we get into the LEC stuff, actually, since we had an episode after your team won EU Masters where we had Leader, and we had Inner Flame on, the guy who's obviously like the CGO, whatever the fuck his title is, can you give us some thoughts? Like, what did you think of your time playing in the Academy team? Was your team actually the best Academy team? Was it legit that you won EU Masters?
I don't think we were. I think we were the third best team, I would say, on paper. I would say that LDLC was probably a better team at that time, and I'm pretty sure Rogue was a better team as well. If you just put everything on paper.
Sure, right? Because obviously, yes, Rogue kept changing the players, so they essentially sort of like gimped the Academy team a bit. And then for people who don't know, the problem with the LDLC team was they just went out way earlier in that tournament than everyone expected, so they never actually got to the deep stages. So, what about this then? If your team, like, this isn't a trap, but if your team was the third best Academy team and you're now a starting LEC team, that suggests things went badly in Misfits.
Yeah, it does suggest it, but I mean, honestly, I think that we did make some changes and we did improve a lot over the last few months, you know?
Okay.
So I wouldn't... I do think that if you would put us right now with the roster we have right now, we would be the best National League team. I think by quite a margin as well. I don't think there's any team that would come close to what we have right now.
Because the thing I have, and I want to get your take on this, Veteran, is like, even though, listen, I like the idea of giving people a chance to get experience at LEC and show their skills off and put themselves in the shop window and all that good stuff. The problem is, if you were going to do it, like, obviously this wasn't done for the benefit of the Academy players. They were just the players at the end who got brought in. But like, I almost want to go even more mad at Misfits, because it's like, right, so you fucked up the spring split, you fucked up a massive roster worth millions of euros, you fucked up the coach and fired the coach, you got another coach back, that didn't help, then you fucked up the main roster again, then you bombed your super, like a super high-level mid-lane talent that everyone was waiting for. You just wrecked him completely, threw him into 2 games, like in the fucking Bane pit, just like, fuck you, and they just had to absolutely tanked his entire rep, and now, when the split is like halfway through, you're just going to bring in the Academy roster who have no experience playing LEC and just say, well, fuck you guys as well. If everyone has to... It's like, being in Misfits is like being in hell. Because there's a famous saying that says, even the demons suffer in hell. It's like, that's what it feels like at this point in time. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's unreasonable to have to play against LEC from halfway through a split, and more even. That's pretty rough, isn't it, Veteran? What the fuck?
Yeah, like what I always like to remind people of is that when you think of like the rookie teams that qualify for the Challenger Series, because there's such a high turnover rate in Europe that there's no doubt in my head that if you guys have managed to qualify for like a similar promotion tournament, you probably would have knocked out one of the last 2 teams, like either Excel or Rogue or one of these teams. Rogue would probably have faced their Academy team if we had that kind of system. You have LDLC in the mix. I'm pretty sure they're all fucked. but it always took a bit for them to like get to the world's level where they were literally qualifying for worlds. And H2K, way back in 2015, they actually didn't win a game for like the first half of their split, but half a split is basically all Misfits Academy have.
Sure.
So while these teams do eventually do really well, it normally takes a bit for them to find their footing. Luckily, obviously, you guys have like scored a win. But you did just score a win against essentially the same team that you beat in EU Masters last time to get into the knockout stage. And it's like I would expect you guys, all of you, even you right now, because you were actually one of the players that I had like issues with when they made the first Misfits Premier roster. I would actually expect all of you to be able to show up, and I think Misfits Premier is the exact kind of roster where if it had been given like 2 splits to perform, we might potentially be thinking of them as a world's level team right now. Or, like one of the teams that could dethrone, like, well, obviously Origin look very shaky right now. Like even they lose to fucking Vitality at this point. I would actually expect you guys to be able to dethrone that, but you just don't have that much time, and it does feel like they've asked you to do a hell of a lot with a hell of a lot less. You start with a 2-6 record, basically, when you come in. And even though you're only there for, like, half the split, you're going to be the roster that has that record at the end of the split, and that's what people are going to think of you. So I share Thorin's anger with this. But I am glad that you guys are grabbing it by the balls and showing good performances already. Like, all of Reddit was fucking talking about how you were smurfing on Rogue. So the optics you've managed to make look really, really good, but
Sure.
I don't think Misfits, the organization, knew for a fact that you were going to do this. And if they did, they knew it for a fact in the same way that they knew for a fact that spending that much money on the initial roster that they had was going to work out, you know? Like, at that point from them, I don't think they can give the excuse like, oh, well, we were for sure that these guys were going to do, like, really fucking well. If you guys do end up doing really fucking well, I won't give them that much credence.
Sure. So basically, I sort of give you a get out of jail free card, mate. I don't judge people too harshly from what happens this split. But as the veteran said, the first games weren't terrible. So you were playing against 2 teams who at the moment actually are considered on the rise. Like Splice is obviously supposedly breaking into contender status. Rogue impressed a lot of people and reignited that stupid Rogue versus TSM argument due to actually appearing to have macro and a support player and jungler. So that puts you ahead of about 99% of the NA teams right there. So what do you think of the first week? I mean, like I said, not the easiest opponents to play necessarily.
I actually think that we would match quite well up against the teams that we played, because we play very spread out, you know. And I know for a fact that Rogue is sweating for their lives when we play 3 lanes. They did the first time when we played them in EU Masters, and we knew that they would do it again. And Splice, they play very, you know, like when an Infernal Drake spawns, you know that 5 of them are going to be there on spawn. So, but our problem was that as our first stage game was my first LEC ever game, so we were all like a bit shaky, you know. We were like, oh god, it's an Infernal Drake. So, but I still think that we managed to play like decently for our levels, you know. I'm still sad that we lost the Splice game, because I think that would have won. That was quite one if not for the Essence Reaver bug we had, the nerfs, and if we had like a bit more experience, we probably would have won that as well. But I'm still like more or less decently happy with like our initial performance, I would say.
Yeah, by the way, there's another thing. So this is just how unlucky Misfits has been this year. Veteran also hyped Neon and said like he's like a person who should be in LEC. First game in, immediately sells like a key item and fucks himself completely. And that's not going to be attached to him. That's not going to be a meme, Veteran. Like, they just can't get a break in this team, can they? It's like everyone telling them, oh, you want to see this leader's fucking Yasuo, and really it's incredible.
Oh, God.
Yeah, about that, actually. About that.
But, oh wait, I can't let you get away with it, by the way. I would have been perfectly fine if you were like, oh no, it's an Infernal Drake. But you were actually like, oh no, it's a 22-minute Ocean Drake. We have to contest this. Oh, it's the Mountain at 30 minutes. We have to come contest this, guys. Groups with Gangplank with like 2 items, if that. Like, that was like, you were obviously really shaky that game. The next game was very representative of what you should expect from Misfits Premier and what they've done to most... I wanted to say challenger teams, but ERL teams, they do spread the map very wide. They do play out 3 lanes. This, by the way, would actually genuinely make them a nightmare for most North American teams to face. They do not know how to react to that kind of playstyle at all. So when people were trying to use the fact that Rogue lost to Misfits Premier, they lost to a team that stylistically is even worse for most North American teams to match up against, assuming that you're playing like you did versus Rogue and not just getting baited into the grouping like you were in the first game, you know? And you really should have won that first game. I genuinely thought you had it. You you're only like 2k gold down. If you had kept getting all the resources that you needed, you absolutely win that game. Hell, even with all of the Drake contests, if you just reset after the Baron fight, I swear to God, you fucking win that game.
Yeah, of course. Or like, there's so many moments where you win if the Silas E hits, if we reset, if we, because after that fight, we were all like, oh, it's won, And then Akali comes in and it's like, oh shit, well, I guess it's lost, guys. So yeah, it's just just first game. I think I mean, it sucks to say it, but it happens, Like,
right, one of the things that we always hear about it's actually both LCS and LEC is like the hierarchy of teams that determine if you can get scrims against good teams, or if you have to scrim the worst teams, or if you can even scrim LEC teams. Right, when you were in the Academy League, did you ever get to actually scrim LEC teams at that time?
Not any top tier. We scrimmed but I'm not gonna say which teams, but at bottom 4 teams.
Sure. Yeah. And has that changed since you're now actually the real LEC Misfits team?
I mean, not numerically. It's we're still scrimming bottom 5, but
okay.
I think it's expected,
It's all right. Stick around long enough, you'll get to play fucking Origin all the time soon. So that'll be pretty good practice.
I mean, it's still we have to prove ourselves.
Sure.
It's not we're gonna do LCS. We're gonna get better scrims instantly, but we do scrim mainly ADC now. It's not we're stuck scrimming like Russians before,
Okay.
That's not
what do you
too
think
bad,
of that veteran? Is it actually that essential to have good scrim partners, or can you just, if you scout properly, still practice the things you want to practice against the low level opposition?
Well, if it was Leader or Kere, then it would be more of an issue. But with Dan, you have players like Cabochard in some of the bottom teams, and this is the obvious joke that so you're still scrimming the Misfits main team then. But Soaz is actually genuinely a really strong top laner. There are actually a lot of strong top laners in the bottom teams. So that might not be too bad for Dan. Would be my immediate impression.
I mean, I think it's good practice for us at the very least, because there is a difference between scrimming lower team LEC and teams from other regions. I'm not saying that those other teams are bad. It's just that the level is way different. They're just not as consistent. Their champion pool is not the same. So it's just good practice for us all around, I suppose, even if they are bottom 4. So,
and you're still getting something from it is the important thing.
Yeah,
if they still have something to teach you, then as long as you're not at the point yet where it's every scrim is a waste of time because it's a fucking 15-minute FF after laning phase, then it's still fine. If it was a scrim bottom teams.
I mean, the best scrims we got during the previous months were playing against the main team, So, and we got that once a week, which was nice. And now we actually get that practice basically 6 times a week, which is just way, way better for us.
That's good.
Okay. Right, Veteran, I'll get your take on this. Since you were someone who followed EU Masters, etc., how do you explain kind of what I jokingly set up earlier? How does a team that was maybe the third best Masters team become actually a competent LEC team? Because the thing that I find surprising is, why were they the third best? Didn't they pretty much have pretty good, all 3 lanes were pretty decent? That everything seemed pretty good in that sense?
So... Actually, okay, so there's a really weird meta shift just before EU Masters, and the meta shift ended up impacting playoffs in Europe as well, but not to the same extent. The vast majority of ERL teams generally have a rather good lane, and then everyone else is kind of dog shit. You'll never see them in the LEC kind of deal, right? Teams in the ERLs are nowhere near as complete as teams in LEC. So in LEC, the meta shift didn't matter too much, but in ERLs, when you had most teams qualifying on what was essentially a bot-centric meta, and then it shifted towards a top-centric meta, a lot of teams got really exposed. So, for example, the Splice team, they basically, not because their top laner was bad, by the way. I actually think Aroma is really good.
I'm assuming they played through Freeze or whatever it was as the ADC, right?
They had a guy called Tearwolf, and this guy had no idea how to play around top at all or do anything towards top side. And I saw that small smirk coming out of Dan there. But Tearwolf had no idea how to play around the top section of his map whatsoever, and they basically only played around Freeze. And you had other teams all had these kinds of issues. LDLC have one of the best bottom lanes in all of the ERLs. I've actually, like, this is something you probably wouldn't have expected to hear me say. I genuinely think that Steelback could take the place of most supports in the LEC right now.
Okay.
Comp is also a phenomenal talent. But when they got there, it was now a top-centric meta, and suddenly SK Prime, who actually had a very strong top laner in Sakura, they could actually do things to them, until they then decided to start like grouping perpetually mid, and then suddenly the fact that Comp was so good actually started mattering. Mattering again, like those games are way closer than they should have been just because of SK's really bad macro. What happened with Misfits is Misfits actually had a bot lane that you wouldn't notice if you just watched the fucking group stage, but through the entirety of the LFL and Spring was like a rock, right? And if any side was actually getting most deaths, it was actually jungle and actually Dandan's lane. But what happened when we got to like the main stage is that Dandan and Leader both had such a good understanding of how to play out their champions once they hit their 1 to 2 item spikes on side lane, that they were effectively able to play a solo lane centric meta better than any other ERL team was. So for that specific meta, I actually do think you guys were probably the best team there. And that was when I started getting really impressed by you. Like, obviously the Nico game versus Vladimir, that's like a dream fucking matchup for you, but you made so many map movements that like Sakura, for example, who was very strong in lane, just was not doing on his team. He just was not considering. He was not playing Jace mid to late game how you should play Jace mid to late game. But I was figuring if you gave that champion to Dandan, even if Dandan's not going to like stomp lane or something with it, he's still going to play out the mid to late game better, and his team's still probably going to win off the back of that. So when you switch to the solo lane centric meta, two things. One, most teams had like weak solo lanes because they'd qualified on a bot centric meta and just not as complete. And two, no one understood how to play out solo lanes better than Misfits Premier, and that's why they ended up winning the whole thing. That's my genuine opinion. I actually think you guys were the best team at that tournament. If the meta had shifted back to bot lane meta, I actually think you guys were still in a good place, but then obviously LDLC would look a lot stronger, for example. And SK Prime would be nowhere near the top because their bot lane is one of the most overrated things in the entirety of the ERLs. It blows my mind how they got such high praise. But yeah, that's my mini rant about Misfits Premier and EUM and the fucking meta shift.
What thoughts do you have on that? It must have been some shit you wanted to jump in on there and tell Veteran he's wrong.
I mean,
he said you had the most deaths in the lane. Your lane was the one where it was all happening. You know, maybe the one that was the weak point.
Okay, wait. I just have to make this mini joke. Is that I always meme that like the purpose of Obsess was to set up a bounty for Leader to collect after. Like, so I wouldn't put it like all on Dandan or something.
I mean, I think we all died a lot in the previous split in LFL. We were just really shaky all around. You know, we didn't really find our style. We had a shaky first 2 months, so everything just went wrong. We were like 5th or something in the league. It was absolutely terrible. Yeah, like even though I guess Jesse does get flamed a bit on the show, I do think that I do have to give a lot of credit to him, you know, because he actually did, like, he recognized what our players were good at, and we were just really clueless, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know, okay, I like playing these and these and these champions, and then Adam Leader knows, okay, I like to play these kind of champions, and before he was there, we were just lost. You know, we were just picking silent top lane. I was running bot lane level 6, hoping hoping the game would end. And that's just not how we play. So he just really knows what we want, you know, and that's how I guess we got to win EU Masters, because he just knew exactly what we wanted, and he just exposes like player strengths. So even though I still don't think that we were the best team there, because I think that if we were to play a best of 5 against Rogue at that time, even with the meta changes or LDLC, we would probably lose.
That's potentially true. That's potentially true.
Yeah. So that's what I mean with better or worse team. I just see that it as like, oh, in a best of 5, we would most likely lose. I'd give us a like 33% chance to win against both teams, I would say. So yeah.
The problem with Rogue is that Rogue's draft, if Rogue had kept that draft understanding for like a best of 5, they would also lose, because they could play around their solo lanes. Like, I agree with you there. They probably could match you guys and your strengths, but they were not picking for that whatsoever. They were still picking in a meta that was a bit irrelevant at that point. But overall, I would agree with you. Like, I think they could, if anyone would.
I think Rogue made the same mistake this week than they had in EU Masters, you know?
Really?
yeah, like I mean, they played Finn.
Mm.
Against
This week
us.
they played Prophet against you.
Yeah, but I mean, like, okay, back when Finn was playing in EU Masters,
Yeah.
they just gave him like a neutralizing lane, like a Vladimir, you know? When Finn is naturally a strong laner, which is good against me,
Yes.
you know? Because you see what happens when you put Sakura and Jace against me. I was not really doing anything until like 25 minutes. Because I like playing these like scaling matchups, and then at 25 minutes, I know I'm the better top laner. But yeah, if Sakura does that, it's gonna take me like 30 minutes, you know, something along those lines. And then they just give Finn like a poor lane. I just know the game is won, you know. Okay, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want it. I didn't know that game, but at least I knew in the back of my mind I'm gonna have a good game, you know. And Rogue did the same, and I mean, they did something similar. They were like, okay, we're gonna play Prophet against me, and I'm like, okay, he's just gonna farm, you know. Like he might be better mid to late game, but I would have had way more trouble if they put like Finn against me, because I know that he's gonna play Aatrox and he's gonna jump. He's gonna crack my skull for every CS I go, and Prophet is just chilling on his range minions, you know, like throwing Qs out, doing 100 damage per wave. I'm like, oh, fine, okay, I guess I'll go even CS, you know. So yeah, I think Rogue's got like a fundamental problem of like understanding how to play against some teams, or at least or maybe we're just there like kryptonite, you know, or something. I don't know. But that's
what do you think, Veteran? Because obviously Rogue has been the hot topic because of the joke I alluded to a bit earlier of whether they'd beat TSM, like completely hypothetical matchup. But they have looked better. Like obviously the Origin game might have even been an outlier. They looked ridiculously good in that one. But where do you put Rogue at the moment? What do you think?
I actually think Rogue are good, but I do agree with him that like Finn would have been way better versus Misfits. I actually like tweeted as much at the time when I saw Prophet was there, because I swear they had announced that they were going to play Finn. Now they have straight up announced that they are, but
like they wanted to play Finn.
Yeah.
But I spoke to them a bit afterwards, and they said that the second that they knew that I was playing, they changed their mind, which I thought was kind of ridiculous, you know. So.
Okay, well, They got punished for that disrespect 100%. Holy shit. Okay. Well, my mind is a bit... Wait, Thorin, can you like repeat the question? Because my mind is...
What do you think of Rogue? What's Rogue's level like?
So Rogue in general. So Rogue in general, I think that they have a really strong mid-jungle duo, and that counts for a lot right now. Like, most teams, somewhat in response to Fnatic, are really hard prioritizing mid-priority before they make any sort of side lane play. The way that Fnatic have lost both times is with a team basically being able to match Hylissang's roams in some way, shape, or form. And with Tahm Kench, it's somewhat easier than with most other champions, but that's essentially all they were doing. They were just matching to mid-priority, and then that denied Fnatic being able to do their side lane plays. Rogue obviously didn't play it out for priority towards a specific side lane. They simply just try to play the early game out properly and outscale them, and then go for like really good flanks in team fights. But this is something that Rogue actually understand, and I think they actually look like they could be a playoffs team right now. Even though they obviously lost to you guys, I think if they're going to start playing Finn now, which is what they have announced as like a definite thing, then that team can only get stronger, because Finn opens up so much more playstyle for them. I know that there's like this idea that Prophet is like a really strong top laner from some people, but I actually disagree with that. I think that if you're at the point where you're saying, well, Finn or Prophet is kind of whatever, but Prophet has experience, then Finn is quite clearly going to be the better player in the long term, because Prophet's being on some of the best teams in the fucking world to get to a level where you're saying it's whatever with a guy who was on fucking Movistar. So I'm really glad that they are going to start Finn. I think Dan's assessment of how Finn would have tried to play the lane is completely accurate from what I've seen with Prophet. And I think with them, then they can start thinking about pivoting to certain side lanes and trying to play different styles. And I think the biggest difference between Rogue now and Rogue earlier in this split is that Larson is now a lot more vocal on the team, and you can really see that with the way that they're setting up the map. Now, it looks very much more like how it was in Ultraliga in the Polish league. Also, it's good to pivot from like you guys to Rogue, because both you guys as organizations ended up realizing that the Academy team was actually better set up than the main team. It just took your guys a bit longer to realize that.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it was more obvious that Rogue's Acad team was better than
Rogue was just all fucking recycled names that you've all seen before anyway. You know.
Yeah. I think it's good though, because Oh, you might have
Yeah,
to just
keep going. No, keep going.
yeah.
Mate.
Like with these academy teams like jumping in, I think teams are like, what's G2 good at? They're all like individually strong players, and I think that teams are starting to realize, okay, what you need right now is like more individual skill on your individual laners, and where's that skill found? In the academy teams, where like players are like hungry, they're playing like 20 games a day, So I think this is gonna give like a lot of other academy teams, or at least players, like actually like time to shine in like LEC as well, or they may look to like replace some of the like more veteran players, I suppose, because there's a lot of players which I'm not gonna name names, but they really look like paycheck stealers
Sure.
in LEC right now. And I mean, I have no like, I'm the last person that can say this, because I'm in here for like 1 week right now, but
Okay.
it really feels to me that I think that a lot of like academy players or like up and coming players would do way better in LEC than like some of the players right here. So I'm at least glad that there's some exposure being brought to like to like other academy teams to like let their other players shine. I think.
Okay.
You're not wrong.
By the way, Veteran, I obviously, at least on this episode, we haven't addressed the question, so I'll ask you the straight up question, which is:
Go for it.
did you already think that the academy team of Misfits was actually better than the real main team, the $1 million
academy
super team?
Okay, so Dan, that might take this as a bit of an insult, but the academy team can do one style of play well. The main team can't do any style of play well. So therefore, I would start the academy team if I actually wanted to start getting with. They could have feasibly done the exact same thing that the that Rogue did and have success with it. The reason I wasn't advocating for that is because Febivan and Soaz were actually still really good players. And I think Hansama was also getting like a really bad rap. I really don't think he deserved it. And I don't think you had like any of these players deserved to be replaced. Like if there were any bad players on the main team, it was jungle. And if there were any players that were like severely mismatched for that, it was definitely support, because neither of these two guys could engage for different reasons. And that's what the team really needed to be able to be a complete team, to have all of the places in check. Like you could have moved Hiva up. And yeah, Hiva's not like as good a player as Gorilla or as consistent yet, but I'd much rather someone who has the mindset of always just going in and then working back from that than the guy who has never gone in the last 4 years, 5 years of his career, to the point where even his AD carry had to do it for him. Like that's a better setup for that roster. I don't think you had to necessarily like fire like the entire team and bring in the academy team, but if you only gave me the option to start one of those two rosters, yeah, I would have started the academy team.
What about internally in Misfits? Like, can you give us any was it really just like overnight someone just told you, by the way, you guys are going to be in LEC now, like we're getting rid of the other team? Like, was it something that was like, did they set it up, like tell you, maybe in the next few weeks we're going to see how things go? How did it come about for you, Dan?
I mean, I'm not sure if I can really talk about all this too much, but let's just say that, I mean, I could tell you like my own thoughts, like I knew that with every loss that they were gonna have to do something, because they were trying different.
Sure.
Because they were trying like different mixtures. They were trying like leader and max lore. They were trying Fev and Kira, and just nothing was working. So with every loss, I just knew that there was gonna be a point where we're gonna have to replace them, because if they kept going like this, there was just little to no improvement from the team, which is not because the players are bad. I think like all the players are actually good, and they've like proven it. It would be really weird to have 5-star players suddenly all appear in one team and realize, oh, they all got carried. It's just not like that. It's just they just had like different ideas how to play the game, and it just didn't work. Like we're by no way like better players. The 5 of us as the academy team, we just mesh better together, and we knew that if they just kept losing, that we would start them. But no one went up to us and they were like, if they lose now, you're in, like
right.
Like they didn't say it. It was just like we were expecting it, but it wasn't like a build up for us. It was just more of a sudden thing.
Sure. By the way, when you were just an Academy player, did you used to watch LEC regularly?
I watched like the good games, you know. I watched all the Misfits games, all the G2 games, and then some Fnatic games or like games that were really close. I would watch, like I wouldn't really watch like Fnatic against Excel because I knew that those games were going to be slightly one-sided, and rather watch LCK.
What do you think of Wonder then from G2?
He's probably by far the best top laner. I think.
What stands out compared to the others?
I mean, I can't say as of yet, but I think that a lot of the top laners in LEC, from what I've seen, are really passive. Like, as in, they don't want to. I mean, I've played 2 games, you know. This is what I've seen, and some scrims, and I feel like all the top laners are just really scared of dying. I think the difference, like, I kind of set like a category for myself. Like, okay, on the top there's Wonder, then there's Alfari. Those 2 I find really, really good, and then the rest are just like kind of. I don't want to use the word whatever, but I feel like if you put a National League top laner in there, he would play more aggressive than those guys. I was really surprised by how passive they are. Really, maybe it's because it's stage, but I was surprised. I just think that those 2 are gonna really be stand out from the rest because everyone else is just like chilling in lane, or that's what the first week impression gave me.
Do you watch
What do you think about that?
Do you watch Pro View?
Do you ever watch the Pro View where you can watch the individual POV?
Yeah. Okay. And so I have to ask, because you said Wonder and Alfai. I think both those guys are great. I think Wonder's been the best top player in the region for 3 years now. But what do you think of Capo Shard now then?
I mean, I don't watch his Pro View, but we've like played him, you know? So this is my like first-hand experience.
It wasn't super impressive.
I mean, they're obviously like way better against compared to what I've played against before, you know. Mm-hmm. But I was really, really thinking that I would like get smashed into the pavement every single game, and it really wasn't the case, you know. So I'm by no means saying like, oh, these guys are bad, because they're not, you know. They're like obviously really good, but I was just kind of expecting more, I suppose.
It's a confidence booster, though, I guess. Like, if you're saying, it's a confidence booster for you, though, I guess. Like, if you're expecting, like, when you say, like, some other top laner would be more aggressive from National League, like, my immediate thought goes to, like, Yopper, for example. Like, Yopper is pretty fucking aggressive when you play against him. Do you think that players like Yopper, like Arome, do I say Shemek now? Yeah, I guess I still say Shemek. Players like this, you think that they are all basically LEC ready from what you've seen? That there are people that they could be replacing right now? You have to think about that.
Honestly, I think that all these players, I think Shemek is like a rock, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think Shemek should be more aggressive and like expand his champion pool, and I think Yoppa shouldn't die to every gank, and then yeah, sure. But no, I mean it's true, because I'm actually like good friends with him, you know, and he knows it. Like when his jungle's pathing bot side and they're making a play bot lane, he suddenly goes in, and then he dies, and then oh, look at that, enemy team has win condition on top lane, you know, and it's just like things like these which make you either an LEC an LEC top laner or a National League top laner with like some personality trait which just doesn't make you good enough. Some people just don't want to die, and other people just want to go in all the time, and they just can't find a balance. That's what I think about these players at the moment. Either
what about Arome then?
Aggressive. I think Arome was better previous splits.
Okay.
I'm played against him a lot. Like there was a time where he was like on Keith, and then he changed to another team, and I was like, Jesus, this guy is like monster, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was playing afterwards, and I just felt like he wasn't really like he was still good, but like some players, it just feels like they don't improve; they just stay at the same level.
Sure.
And that's kind of what I felt with him. But he's still probably like top 3 best National League top players at the moment, I would say. Yeah.
Who would your top 3 be?
Probably Hirit, White Knight, and the Mad Lions top laners.
What about, okay, this is the last, like, amateur league person I'll ask you about. Have you played against Aggressivo at all?
I think I have once.
Ah,
I mean,
okay.
like, I can't really say we played like a really boring matchup in EU Masters. We let Vladimir Akali and we just farmed, so I can't really say much about him. But I've heard a lot of good things about him, but since I haven't played against him, I can't really say.
Yeah, I have good things to say about him, but I just wanted to see if you had an opinion.
No.
Right.
Veteran, what do you think of where top lane meta is at in EU at the moment?
It's in a pretty fucking good place for him right now. Now that we're away from that whole fucking Scion bullshit that we had last split, and you're at the point where, like, Aatrox, for example, I think is an underrated pick. Even though you obviously see Fnatic pick it every game, I legitimately think you first pick this shit. Even on 9-14, like, what they did to Aatrox is a fucking buff. Like that, like I don't know what the fuck they were thinking with that. But you are at the point where playing around top is like a very fucking viable strategy to do, and for a solo lane centric team like Misfits. Yeah, you're just Misfits now. I think it's really fucking strong. And like obviously you've just brought out the Jax. That's a counter into like Maud. A lot of this kind of shit that people have just been blind picking, where I think that they shouldn't be blind picking it whatsoever. So I actually think it's a really good time for you to be in the LEC.
What do you think of where the meta's at, mate?
I think 9-14 has made blind picking a little bit harder, because I think the nerfs are like, for Aatrox, I mean, he's like a better split pusher, slightly better early game. I think team fighting is a bit harder with him now. Tombstone has gone as well now, so team fighting with bruisers is more difficult, but I still think like top lane meta is like quite good at this stage. Like, I think red side's really broken, because blind picking on blue side if you don't have Aurelia or Aatrox is quite difficult. But if someone just doesn't blind pick Aatrox Aurelia and you have red side counter pick, yeah, if your top laner is good, then you're gonna have a hard time on blue side.
I can't imagine you reading a patch note where you're like, oh, this makes him a much better split pusher, but a worse team fighter, and not just interpreting that as a straight fucking buff for you. Like, I can't imagine
No, but like when we played like Rogue, and I see my Sona being level 11, and I have 3 items on Jax, I know I can team fight as well. I'm like, I'm never gonna die.
True.
So that's more the way I think of it. Now, if I see my Sona and then there's no Tahm Kench, and you can't pick Taric, because if you, then but I still think
there's one option kind of gone, I guess, is what you're saying.
Sure. But I still think playing around like solo lanes, as long as like Karma is gone, all these neutralizing lanes, like Nara, Karma, like as long as people aren't really playing those or they're banned, I think top lane. I just think if your top lane is good, it's way more impactful than previous seasons.
By the way, Veteran, what is actually your take on that whole thing I alluded to earlier, where Neon did the accidental like selling of like the fucking Essence Reaver instead of like a portion or whatever it was, or that had like spawned? I think the biscuit had spawned, right? And so it just moved the item along one after he'd already like right clicked and then moved his mouse or something like that. So I noticed it was very, very complicated to explain why. Like, as far as I could tell from the referee's explanation, it did sound like it was technically Neon's fault. It's just that what happened could happen to almost anyone, as far as I can tell.
I mean, I can explain exactly what happened.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Because he explained it like 10 times afterwards, so I know exactly. So he went to base. He had a BF sword. He upgrades the BF sword into an Essence Reaver, closes the shop, opens the shop again, moves his mouse to the potion, but he, instead of clicking on the potion, he slightly drags it, and he presses sell. The thing is, dragging the potion doesn't, according to Riot, is what I told us, is that it doesn't select the potion, So since he slightly dragged it, the previous item which he had selected was a BF sword, and pressing sell apparently now sells the Essence Reaver, which builds. Which was part of the component BF sword, So yeah.
And then the key problem was he left the base after that. He didn't say that because he couldn't just go and do it. Right, that's the big issue. Yeah.
Then he teleported, and he had Brawler's gloves and some boots, and enemy Kaisa had Miramana pickaxe, boots, and recurve bow. So yeah.
By the way, Thorin, any time that local anyone like argues with you about Kobe, just please bring up that fucking game where this guy is literally a full item ahead for most of the fucking game, Xayah versus Sivir, and this Sivir is not permanently dead on my screen. There were so many times that Neon should not be able to walk up, that he was just freely
Kai'Sa,
walking
right?
up where Kobe was doing nothing. Yeah, it was Kai'Sa. Yeah. But it was like, he should be dead so many fucking times. Like, it actually blew my fucking mind, that game. But yeah, like, as he just said, like, I think the critical thing is that basically if you release your left click away from it, then it doesn't matter if it was ever on it. So you have to release the left click if it was on it, and then it would select that. So he basically just never selected anything else, so it just stayed selected on the episode.
And do you agree then that it was technically his fault, so there shouldn't be anything done with the game?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Riot did anything wrong, basically. Like, I think it's like a weird way to have it set up. I think that when you click as opposed to when you release should be what selects it, but that's apparently the way it's always been. I think the only thing Riot should address is the way match history apparently records match histories. It seems like if you like select everything within the same minute, then the first time that you were in base within that minute, everything goes on that row. So a lot of people thought he had actually sold the potion for ages, just because the moment they started the game again, he recalled immediately to try to get everything back. And yeah, so that caused like some confusion. I didn't realize match history worked like that, but like overall, I don't really blame Riot for this. Also, it's not like, because I saw you tweeting about like the referee thing. Technically, we're flaming anyone as the tech guys, because the tech guys just tell the referee if it was or wasn't a bug, and then the referee just has to do whatever with that. So technically, we're flaming tech guys.
I mean, referee had like nothing to do with it, you know? Like, like poor referee getting flamed. She's like, I just saw her like really stressed, you know, like, oh god, what's going on, you know? And she's just like transmitting the info they're giving to her. So yeah, if you want to flame someone, flame.
The problem there is like that. It's an example of where they've just used the wrong title. Like calling that person a referee doesn't make much sense, because in every sport, referee is the person who makes the call. He's the one who has to know the rule book. You know, he's the guy who makes the judgment. Whereas, as you say, if all they're doing is communicating to the players, like this is what's happening. Like there should be a different name for that. Like I don't know, player liaison, some shit like that. You know, like it would make, because the problem is that's what throws me off. The referee, like referee sounds like I'm the final judge of what happens here. You know.
I think it's like a mediator might be better, because all they do is like if the players don't pause, the referee can also call for like a pause, or say that like you guys need to we need to pause the game now. They can do that and then ask the tech guys if they think something's happened. So it's more like a mediator, because they don't really they're not an expert on the game and they're not making the whole judgment themselves, but they can call for when a judgment is needed to be made. I guess it's a way to think about it.
Okay. That's pretty unlucky for that to happen in like your second game in the the first game, the first game ever in LEC. Fuck it, Misfits just can't catch a break. I don't know what it is. I think basically what happened was whoever made Misfits, Ben Spoon or something, obviously just bought like a fucking, you know, in line with his branding, he bought like a Lucky Rabbit's font, but it was actually like secretly cursed by like some ancient Indian curse or something. So it's been fucking him ever since. He thinks it's a lucky charm. Like that's actually also, believe it or not, what he basically he robbed that little veteran. He thought, should I buy Gorilla? Yeah, fuck it, it's just money in it, and then just spent it. So.
He didn't know. He rubbed it, and he was like, "Please give me a team that works." And then it like goes up, and he's like, "Yes, finally, we have it." And then everything's just collapsing for the whole fucking split. And then Misfits Premier win EU Masters. All along.
So he did the cursed monkey paw then, he did the one where it's like, you know, the wish comes true, but not in the way you think. Yes. Exactly. Yes, he goes, listen, I'm about to spend a lot of money, so this team, like, I better have a team by the summer that works. And then it's like technically the wish did come true. By the summer, he did actually have a team. Like, I mean, for a start, they're at this lineup's a 50% win rate, so that's improved already. You know, it's not bad. Yeah, there you go. He did it. He did it in the end.
Hiva got his first win in LEC, 50%.
Also, there's another thing. That's how we know Veteran has some sort of control over the simulation, because Veteran's been spending the last 8 weeks going on about how Hiva should play, and then he does play now, because the entire team plays. You know, he was never going to get in as a sub, but if the entire team plays, then he plays. Yeah, they're not just going to leave him out, are they?
That was my rabbit's foot wish. Like, please, for the love of God, just let them sub in Heaver, and then next day, all 5 starters of Misfits are kicked. All 5 Misfits Premier are playing. That was my rabbit's foot.
You know the problem Heaver has, right? I know you know this veteran, but he's another player where he doesn't seem to realise you have to overcome your narrative if it's one that you don't agree with. And his narrative was that he was supposed to just be a super toxic player who, understandably, that people didn't want on a team, right? Probably still is, I assume, if I had to guess.
I'm not sure. Like, whenever
Wasn't that what people always used to say about him?
I mean, whenever I talk to plebs about him, they basically just say he's bad. I'm not sure if the narrative behind him is that he's toxic, but if that is the narrative behind him, I think he should just fucking embrace it. Like, I think he should just try to be like a support forgiven in terms of narrative. Like, yeah, I was inting, but that's because the only answer to can we go in is yes. Like, he should just try to push that as his narrative, you know? And that could actually work out for him. It worked out for Forgiven, even when Forgiven was dying to like every gank on Gambit and shit like this. Like, that kind of stuff can work out. I don't know if people were calling him toxic.
Maybe I'm thinking of someone else on that one, but I was sure it was Heaver, I thought, but maybe not.
I mean, he's very energetic, I'll say that much at least. I like talking to the guy.
Okay, fair enough. Because the theory, I don't know if you heard this, Dan, but like Veteran's theory the whole time was basically that the problem in Misfits was they didn't have a good engage because Gorilla couldn't do that. And that's why he actually wanted Heaver the whole time to be in the main team because he thought that would be like a job he could do.
Yeah, it's a job he can do.
Surely one of the problems they had, yeah. But
that was okay. No, they were at points where they were like 8k gold up with like Zach Alistair, and just nobody was ever fucking engaging. Like, this team actually had one of the highest GD at 15s last split.
That's true.
For the first half of this split, they also had one of the highest GD at 15s. Actually, I think this split,
which is why it doesn't make sense that people think just in lane all the players were bad. Like, there's no way you couldn't have those numbers.
No, but they could never close it because no one would ever hit go. They could have easily beaten Fnatic. There were multiple fucking times that game where I'm just looking at like this Lux and Skarner just sat in a fucking brush as 3 people walk past them. I'm thinking, if this is Heaver, they're all fucking dead right now. They would have at least fucking tried. There's no reason not to go in when you're this far ahead. And like I just know that there were players on your like Kirei's a soft upgrade in this sense because Kirei goes for like a lot of picks, but he does them in like isolated scenarios. You know, so then the way that you guys play such a wide map is so fucking good for Kirei. But like Heaver will do this regardless. Like, so I thought that like Heaver would be the upgrade, Kirei would be like a soft upgrade because I think he's a better jungler than Maxwell, but he doesn't like add the fucking team fight engage thing. You know, it's not how Kirei wants to play. It's not where Kirei plays best. Kirei plays best on your team. Like, that's like fucking perfect for a guy who was spamming Talia long after everyone else had forgotten about her in the jungle, you know? Like, this guy loves that kind of scenario.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main team just had more than just like engage issues, you know? Like, I think that's an issue that stems from just having different mindsets, you know? Because,
sure.
I mean, I obviously can't like talk about it because of like privacy for like players and all that, but yeah, like when you hear a team's comps that are like very decisive on everything, they talk way less, you know. That
yes,
there's like way,
of course, yeah.
There's like way less chatter. You say, okay, shift it to top lane. Everyone knows what to do, you know.
Yes.
And in teams where people are not on the same page, yeah, there's just a lot of like useless chatter in the mixture. There's like, okay, well, if you want to push top and shift top, then you need to go ward here and here, and it's just it just didn't really fit.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, Veteran, but I actually have a theory that's very similar to that I actually developed in Counter-Strike, believe it or not. But just because in League of Legends, there were so many years behind concepts like shot calling that it was just applied instantly, which is in Counter-Strike, the same thing happens, right? So this is a few years back, but when Fnatic was the best team in Counter-Strike, the Swedish team with JW and Olof Meister and these guys, when their team was number one, was actually during an era where for a brief period of time, tournament organizers actually tried, it was mainly ESL, ESL doing tournaments where you could afterwards listen to the VOD with the actual voice comms. So you could go and listen to what the team players were actually saying in the match. So obviously everyone like me just ran and did that immediately because you were like, oh, it must be amazing, right? Yes. And the thing is, in the game, the Fnatic team had like the best team play. They just seamlessly would play off each other. Like in the actual game, their in-game leader even was famous for like being mid-round calls, like, changing up what you're going to do after what you initially were setting up for. So you would expect, right, as a naive individual, he must be like talking a lot. He must give like, loads of information. No, it was the opposite. They talked the least of any team in the game because exactly what Dan's saying. Yeah. When they would say one thing, my analogy for it is it was like a macro in a computer where you make one button do like 3 things. The idea was when they would say something simple, like he said, everyone knew what that meant. Like it didn't have to contain all the information. Yes. Like however they practiced, however they played, whatever tendencies they had. And then so onto that, I built a second theory, which is when you hear teams, so for example, famously when North America wasn't good at CSGO, they used to never shut the fuck up talking. People were talking all the time, like giving useless comms, like things that even like, the other player could see. Like there's a guy coming around now. It's like these aren't the comms that we need. Like that's just nothing. So my analogy was like that when you don't have really good team play and when your players don't have, I won't say naturally, but you just haven't gotten good synergy, then you need more communication as like a scaffolding basically around your team to allow it to function. Because without that, since your players clearly don't get each other, you're actually going to have a very hard time knowing what this guy's going to do and what to do. So you have to literally tell him every time you have an idea in mind. Yeah, it seems to fit most team games as far as I can tell.
Oh, no, it does. No, it fits like every fucking team game. Like the way that I always put it was that we don't want discussion now, we want decision. Like discussion is for the fucking post-scrim VOD review. Like in game, you need to get to your decision as fast as possible. If you can be a decision behind the enemy just because you spent so much fucking time discussing it, they will obviously be better than you if they're making the decisions faster. Every time you hear a team having fucking discussions, actually in game know what to do for a long ass period. Yes. And if your team doesn't know what to do, they're not functioning as a team right now. If he's just hearing discussions permanently, then obviously something is fundamentally wrong with the way that Misfits are approaching it. Not really approaching the game at all. It's the team equivalent of the way that we were analyzing like what makes players like Leader, like Caps, like Forgiven, like the way that they learn the game, why that's so effective. Like they don't even have these discussions in their minds in game. They make like a decision, like I'm going to fucking dive this guy, chases to tier 3, dies after the game. Maybe I can't do that. But, they're making decisions really fucking fast, and eventually Caps just knows all of the good decisions to make. Like that is how you should approach it, not just as an individual, but as a team. Like you can't afford to have any of these kinds of discussions. I was actually going to relate Dan's point to Origin because I was actually part of Origin's Challenger Series roster, so I heard like their comms a lot, and there was a lot of discussion between Amazing and Miffy, but Pekka would always like stop it turning into a full-blown discussion, right? Like he would always basically force a decision, like Miffy was technically the shot caller and Amazing was technically the shot caller for like early game, and they had these disagreements, but Pekka made sure that they didn't get bogged down in discussion. They just like made a decision and then they actually did something in game with it, so just a perpetual argument is probably what would have happened. So when Pekka was going to be subbed out for Power of Evil and people were saying that was like an upgrade because Power of Evil is just going to be a better mid laner than Pekka, like I was already sat there thinking this is not going to fucking work out, and lo and behold they actually had to sub in Pekka eventually because I knew that now you weren't going to have someone to prevent those fucking like arguments becoming actual like in-game discussions and preventing them just making decisions in-game. Pekka played this mediator role so fucking well. Like that's actual leadership in game. If you can just tell people that like we're not having this fucking discussion now, like just play, like we're gonna do this instead, from the arguments that Miffy and Amazing was having. Like Miffy was definitely the shot caller, but for me Pekka was always like the leader. And just changing Pekka for Power of Evil almost turned them into like a bottom tier team there. And then when they started rotating Pekka back in, they managed to make it to the finals. And just on there you can see the absolute impact that you have versus a team that discusses versus a team that like makes decisions, because Origin had both of those. Then eventually they had Dan. So yeah. He was on that. Wait, did you ever see Thorin, that meme, that motivation work improvement team? He was in that.
Really?
Yes, he was in that. He was on that Origin team. Wait, what was the team before? You were Wind and Rain? Were you Wind and Rain before?
Yeah, we were in a raid. And we won Challenge Series qualifiers.
Yeah, they won Challenger Series qualifiers as a bunch of basically complete randoms that no one expected. And then Origin immediately picked them up for their team that was like stuck in Challenger Series. And then Pekka's mum made the graphic.
I still get the notifications of people retweeting that.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, right, because you were all tagged on the pitch, right? I assume, right? That makes sense. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a beautiful journey. How wrong
that is a fucking meme and a half, that as well. Because the problem with that is, right, obviously, yeah, there's something to all that. Like, yeah, those are components of a good team, etc. But the problem is when you know someone's mum made it, it's sort of like, you know, like if she took like, oh, you won a game, I'll put it on the fucking fridge. It's like just that sort of shit, isn't it? It's like, I don't know, I'm not feeling that, mate. That's, you know, it's a bit awkward.
We were a bad team. Just like,
sure, okay.
It's just like putting it out there. But 3 of our players and our coach have actually made it because our coach was Mac from Splice.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I was on the roster with Neon, so
one of those teams that Veteran rationally hits, I've heard.
Yeah, Duke said that. So because Dan then doesn't know, maybe people aren't aware or watching. Duke went on Listen Loco and said that he's pretty sure that the reason why I criticize them is because I have like something personal against one of their coaching staff members or something, which like blows my mind because I'm nowhere near as harsh on them as I am on Misfits, for example. And no one in Misfits would accuse me of having something personal against them. Will I explicitly state that the way they fucking decided to put the roster together was just wrong. They still fucking come on my show and I still talk with them and we're still all fine. So it fucking blows my mind that you came to that conclusion. But continue then, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other player, Scarlet, I think he's on Clutch.
Oh god.
Yeah, I think that might.
Clutch or Optic?
He's on Optic. Optic. Oh
yeah,
no.
Exactly. So look how far he came.
He's not good. I'm sorry.
Motivation.
What position does he play?
Motivation, work, improvement team.
Mid. Oh, he's never going to be playing an Optic then, is he? Like their best player's crown. He's never going to.
He did, and they beat TSM. He was getting shit stomped on Vladimir for like 90% of the game. He did one flank, and then I go on Reddit, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, Scarlet is amazing." He plays 4 champions. No, we literally like banned 3 of his champions and first pick Kassadin, and this guy was like done. Once we banned 3 of his champions and blind picked Kale because we knew all he could play was Vladimir, you know, and he just picked the Vladimir anyway. And like the lack of scouting to let this guy get his champions that you have to do is insane. By the way, his name is literally Scarlet Red Hands. By the way, his nickname in Europe is Scarlet No Hands for all you NA guys who are meeting him in solo queue and want a name. Just it blows my mind the narrative that has been built around him. People are like, we give this guy Rookie of the Split and shit like it's how much do you guys hate North American mids that you'll give this guy so much credence before you ever praise like Soligo or someone like that? Sorry for that one. I'm sure you're still friends with him, but that just blew my mind. He's so bad. Let's continue. Holy shit.
No, that was all I had to say anyway. I was just, yeah.
Exactly. He was just pointing out that out of, you know, the disaster that was Origin, the seeds came forth and a beautiful flower grew and blossomed later and eventually joined Optic Gaming.
The flower is now fucking trampled by like veterans, so yeah, it's
there
like,
we go. It's over now. It's dead. Exactly.
It's like in their dirt. So yeah, I mean,
wait,
what can you do?
You have to tell Loco that next time he like backs up Bjergsen, just say this guy lost to Scarlet No Hands.
Yeah,
just say that to him. There's no counterplay to that argument. Like, there's no counterplay.
It's all right, Veteran. Here's the thing. I'll give you a little piece of info here. I used to let Loco book the show for Listen Loco, just because also like we do it that often. I couldn't be asked doing like 10 shows or whatever. So he actually eventually, you could tell he'd reached his limit because he's just tapped out completely, and I now have to book the guests again. So don't worry, we'll do an episode in the future, and we'll see. I don't know how we'll do it, but we'll put it this way: we'll have that whole Froggen discussion with you on that show because. Listen, you have to realise, all he ever does with me is just go to the angle of like, just state, like Loco's method of arguing is just to constantly restate with more and more exasperation your point that you've just made. Like, so you think that Froggen is, and so you think that it's like, yeah, are you going to make a point ever? Like, yeah, I do think that, motherfucker. For the reasons I just said, can you argue against it? So you think? It's like, yes, I do. I do think that. I do, Loco. So anyway, we will book that show. Is there any final topic for this show you want to bring up, Veteran?
We haven't talked about like any of the teams.
We haven't, but he did just say earlier, like, that he only played 1 week, and he did imply like he only watched a couple of teams like Misfits and G2. So if you can, what about this then? Which players can you tell us about? Like, is there any of the top players in the league you want to talk about, or any of the teams that come to mind? Like, what about Fnatic, for example? The way they use Bwipo, I feel like a lot of people don't really have I feel like just from reading fans and Reddit, I don't think they have a very good read whatsoever on what Fnatic does with Bwipo, whether he's a good player. You know, it feels like they just coin flip one way or the other depending on the game. So what's your take on Bwipo?
I'm really not sure what to think about him, honestly, because sometimes he seems really good, and sometimes he just feels like he doesn't really know what he's doing, you know? But I've known Bwipo for like a while, because I know I played against him in 2017, and back then I could already see this guy's like smart, at least, you know? Maybe he's not the best laner or like the most mechanically gifted player, but I think that he's at least a good fit for Fnatic, you know? That's like all I could really get from seeing him a lot. I don't know, Bwipo's like one of those wild cards for me. I've got like, I said like the tier list. I've got Wunder, I've got Alphari, and then Bwipo's like somewhere in between like the bottom tier top laners that I find and the top two. But it's, yeah, I mean, usually I know what to expect when I get into a match, but for next week I really have no idea what's going to happen with him.
You say like you put Alphari in like such high esteem, but you also like really value aggression. Most people would say that like Alphari is like known to be like a smart top laner, you know, like not, they wouldn't class him as like super aggressive. So like what is it about him that you like?
I just think that he knows how to play to his limits really well, you know? I think when you look at top and mid, you put a mid laner at top, he's gonna play way more aggressive than a top laner, just because mid laners, they just like test their limits way more. They're way more like, when I play mid lane and I play against I don't know, Caps or something, he plays Akali maybe 20 times better than any LEC top laner would, just because mid laners are like they're just more aggressive. They like test their limits way more, and I think so does. And I think the two top laners that do that the most are Alphari and Wunder. I think that they just know when to go aggressive. They know when they can trade. They know that even if enemy jungle's topside, that they can go for a chunk. You know, like I think that's what sets the really good top laners apart. Because like some top laners, they're just like really solid. You know, they just won't die. But and they're just gonna wait for, like, they've got really good wave management. But I think what sets the really good top laners apart from the other ones is that they just know their limits.
Sure. I actually really like the last thing you said, like knowing even if it like enemy jungle is topside, like knowing that you can specifically go for a chunk there. That is probably like logically the next step that probably gates some players in the LEC right now. And if you're thinking in those terms, then that probably isn't going to gate you for very long. So I like that.
This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, NateDOhDoubleG, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, Dean Tanglis, Wendelful, Blunt Smoking Anus Destroyer, Daniel Olivar, Chi Mao, JDubs, Kolja G, OllieJ, Tobias Bernasconi, and a special thanks always goes out to Jerky's Minion and weixz. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Perhaps you'd like to ask me a question for my monthly video AMA. Do you want teasers or who the guests are for my upcoming videos? Maybe you want to take part in a monthly donate a discussion with me. Well, all of these perks and more are available at the Patreon link in the description box below.